tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, why don't we make our panelists feel exceptionally special? Why don't you give them the biggest roar and round of applause for having to face me for 30 minutes? Our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Good. Good. Excellent. Well done. Sounds like we have family members in the audience, which is nice. Thanks for coming out. So this is my favourite topic, actually. It's the sort of no-nonsense discussion about what actually works in advertising. I've been very fortunate to do a lot of chairing over the last couple of days with US colleagues, with European colleagues. So I'm used to a certain level of nonsense that is becoming undigestible for me personally. But today, this is going to be very digestible, isn't it? We're going to talk common sense, we're going to talk what works in advertising, and we're going to talk why creativity needs to be at the forefront of every single marketing campaign that is produced. So, introduce yourself and tell us, is it really worth winning a lion?
I'll go first. I have a bias. So SAS, I have two jobs. My day job, I work with WPP VML, Chief Business Officer. I handle a couple of the global brands and relationships. And on my night job, I work with the IAA, and got these lovely guys here from the IAA, the International Advertising Association.
They're very excited.
Very excited.
Do they get out very often?
Your question about does it matter to win a lion, my answer is absolutely it does. Because I think coming from an advertising strategy background, what you see here is brands that are being celebrated for creativity. I think the world's getting only more complicated. I think we have more issues around the world, and I think creativity is a really powerful force to be able to unsolve some of those. And I think the essence of this festival is creativity or ideas that make brands become unignorable. And I think your objective as a marketer is to make unignorable content and marketing. So I think if that festival awards the best brands that do that, I think it's absolutely worth it, 100%.
Do introduce yourself and tell us if
Sure.
It's obviously you're all creative people, so you're all going to say yes, right? There's a bit of a bias here, but maybe you should answer whether we award the right type of creativity at this event here.
Oh, I'm having the hardest question already.
Straight in.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Léoda and I'm a managing director at Marcel. And first, I'm still going to answer the first question, which is really great. And I do believe that it's less about the award and it's more about the kind of ambition that is driving this festival within an agency. So if you wake up and you're creative and you wake up and you say, I want to win an award, that's not very healthy, probably. But if you wake up saying, I want to do the best work possible for this brand, and then this work is going to be awarded by the best creatives and the best marketers in the world here, then I think this is the right ambition for everyone. And to your second question, which was about do we award the right thing, I think there is so many categories here that every single work that is worth being awarded is being awarded. Is there a project that seems to be a little bit more short-lived than long-term effectiveness brand building? Maybe, but I think also those kind of like one-shot campaigns can actually have a super cool effect afterward on the brand, and it can lead to marketers to do like better brand building, long-term effectiveness, long-term creativity. You just need like for once to show a brand and someone that creativity matters, and then I think it can drive a whole new behavior within the brand and within an agency.
So even if it's short or long, it takes the creative cycle out of their comfort zone. So either way, it's good, regardless of the impact.
Yes.
Okay? Sas, were you going to jump in there?
I was going to say, you were talking about kind of short form or short term.
Yeah, like kind of like one project, like one.
Yeah. So I'm opposably against kind of tactical. I think our industry is becoming much more tactical. And I think there is an enormous amount of financial pressure or financial influence on our industry. I don't think you can put financial metrics and making sure that creativity becomes short-term because it doesn't build brand equity. I believe much more on long-term brand building, which I think in the long run benefits you more. And I think research proves that. But unfortunately, we're always bound by two streets these days. We got High Street and we got Wall Street. And a lot of us have to answer to Wall Street while we do work for High Street. So there are opposite streets there.
Right. And how is that cut through with clients going so poorly? Because, I just did a lot of stuff for the US, and there's a lot of top brands that are moving their money to conversion-based media and going short. Why do they not understand the research, and why is it so hard to get them to understand that and do the right thing?
Am I answering that?
Yeah, you do that, and then we'll come to Adam.
Okay. No, I think we have brands, and we have good examples and we have bad examples. You have a lot of brands that are doing just tactical and short term, because again, I think the financial metrics and the people that are maybe on that board, or kind of the value that they need to create is much more short term based. But I think it has to be a balance. I'm not saying that tactical work should not be part of your marketing agenda, but when you look at the essence of talk to BAV, talk to all these brands that kind of are assessed, brand value is always assessed long term. You don't assess brand value on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, right? You assess it after a year or two. So I think long term definitely works in the long run, but I think it has to be a combination. It has to be a balance.
You're right, Adam. Should we take the Lions seriously, and do they measure impact over short-term campaigns? Are they worth winning from your perspective?
Can I just speak to Sas's point about long-term brand building? I was having one of the great things about Cannes is the conversations you have, right? The conversations you weren't intending to have. Anyway, I sat next to at dinner with Somnay last night, and their view was we shouldn't be talking about long-term brand building with the CFO or the CEO at all. They don't understand it, not interested in it. If you talk to them about building future demand and profitability, they're really interested in that conversation. We're just not talking in the right kind of way. We're not really talking about what they care about. And it's just such a fundamental reframing of what we need to do, I think. Anyway, that wasn't your real question to me. Your real question was something I'm going to choose to interpret about the work I've been doing around dullness. Am I okay to talk about that?
You can talk about the cost of boring. How about that?
Thank you very much indeed. Good. So I'm Adam. I am the founder of a company called eatbigfish. I spent 25 years of my life studying challengers, people who can't afford to be dull, for whom it's existential to be boring, and what we can learn from them. And actually, I then took a pause about 6 months ago when I realized I'd been in the business 40 years. And in all that time, the quantity of dull, mediocre shit around us that masquerades as marketing and communications has remained exactly the same, if not worse. And that for all we've learned an extraordinary amount from brilliant data and brilliant people about the greater impact that creativity gives you, it's just not making a big enough dent on it. So the work that Justin was referring to is saying, could we flip it? Could we learn from Daniel Kahneman and the principle that actually the pain of losing something is twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining it? And could we look at the cost of dull? And could we talk to CEOs and CFOs about how much it costs them to be boring? So worked with Peter Field and Les Binet, taking their data and flipping it upside down. And to cut a long story short, in the UK, if you look at awarded campaigns, rational versus emotional, it costs a rational campaign £10 million more in media spend to have the same commercial impact as an interesting campaign. If you then track the US industry and split it into quartiles of most interesting versus 3 quartiles of least interesting, if you look at what it would cost, the 3 quarters, the 75% most boring ads a year to have the same commercial impact as the 25% most interesting, they would have to spend collectively $189 billion more to have the same commercial impact, which is the same as the GDP of Greece. So we're at the early stages of this, but it's a really interesting conversation to have, because it's by creating a phrase, the cost of dull, it's really catching on, it's really landing. We're hoping you can start to have a different kind of conversation with the CEO, which is to say, not being judgmental about this. If you want us to produce dull work, we'll do that. You need to give us an extra 10 million or 40 million or 50 million to do that. Is that really on the cards?
You have to have big pockets.
You have got big pockets, yeah.
Can I just answer something? I think it's great. I love Les Binet's work. I think he's great, and what you said is absolutely 100% true. And I think he's got a theory around the fact that advertising is also as much about offense as it is defense, in terms of you have to it's about retention, retaining your clients. It's about keeping your clients. Specifically now in this era where clients are losing interest in brands and moving off, that's even more true, to make sure that the cost of boring do interesting work, do interesting shit that actually keeps them there and interested in your brand versus them going off.
Yeah, when it was imposed on consumers, you could do whatever you want. Like if you wanted to do like dull, fine. Consumers were like receiving ads. But now it's a two-way conversations with consumers and brands, so you cannot afford to bore them because they have everything on their hand to skip you. They have the ad blockers, they have everything. They can skip anything that you're producing. They can choose deliberately to not watch it, which was not the case before. So if you really want someone to watch something and like disturb the kind of entertaining content that they're watching every day, it has to be really, really effing good, I think.
Attention span. Well, we were talking about attention spans. Is that you?
Go ahead, tell us.
No, but you're right, because we were having this conversation about the actual attention span of consumers today. Whether what I'm about to say is real or not, I think early 2000s, maybe kind of mid 2000s, was about 12 seconds, the average attention span of a consumer. A goldfish's attention span is 9 seconds. Goldfish. I don't know how they've decided that, but human beings have 8 seconds. So we're 1 second lower than. But I think this attention span is going to go even lower as media and fragmentation increases. So we're in trouble.
I agree. And can I just do build? So the data I was telling you is about content on the most interesting platform, which is TV. We're not looking at the effect of dull content compounded by dull platforms. That's a whole separate conversation. That gets very expensive very fast.
So very quickly, are we getting more boring or more creative? What's happening today? What do you think?
Can I
do it? Yeah.
I think there are 3 or 4 forces of dullness, which are very big and prevalent forces. One is performance, obviously. We've talked a bit about that.
Yep.
And the sense that actually not only is there a kind of I was having a conversation this morning with somebody, again, chance conversation, and I said, so what have you liked about Cannes? He's a very experienced marketer, and he said, well, I'm struck by the kind of dilemma between, do you go for the kind of, the last 3 clicks and put all your money there, or do you do brand building? And I said, well, all the evidence suggests that it's not about either or, it's about doing both. He said, well, I can't afford to do both, so I'm going to do the last 3 clicks. That's what I'm going to do. So, A, that's his mindset. B, is a whole generation of marketers reared on performance who are bringing that mentality and that assumption that customers are much, much more interested in their category than they really are to everything that they do. So it's a much bigger problem. That's the first thing. Second is procurement. We don't talk enough about procurement and how that drives down the profitability of an agency and the ability to actually go on fighting for what they believe is the right thing to do for a client, because actually if the client doesn't buy it the first couple of times, it's really expensive to brief your creative teams to go again. So ultimately you're going to give them what they want. Difficult to talk about, but it's the reality of the situation. And the third, I think, is just the notion of optimization and just that need about this needs to work across all our platforms. It needs to work in a thumbnail. It just drives down to the lowest common denominator any idea you've got.
Does boring actually sell? So I'm gonna try and argue that boring sells, right? When I look at the QSR category, okay, every single ad is a juicy burger or salty fries or a very wet drink. You know the ads I'm talking about? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they're not interesting. That's not creative. I don't feel happy when I see them. I just see the same ad all the time. But it works. Like McDonald's, for example, they do it extremely well. So does actually boring sell?
I think you need to divide that question into 2 parts. I think what they're doing when it comes to the juicy burgers and the fries and the kind of that really nice appetizing shot, I think that's great. They need to do that because that's intrinsic advertising, right? That's about it needs to get my head to say you're hungry. But McDonald's, I think, does that very well. But I think McDonald's has also been Marketer of the Year here when they've done phenomenal advertising. So I think that's one brand that has mastered the fact that you need to be very tactical to make sure that you don't bore people. Get straight to the point. If you're hungry at lunchtime, serve that. But at the same time, talk all about the big things. Talk about purpose. Talk about the big issues that we have around the world. I think they do a very good job at that. I think that's a good example.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think McDonald's is a very good example of how you can do both. And I'm just going to talk about France for just a second, because when you talk about the brands, the ads that are like just the food, like juicy food. In France, they are doing that. But once they have done a campaign with like zooms on the food, the very iconic products of McDonald's, without any logo, without any line, without anything. So just a zoom on the product that was supposed to drive the consumer directly to McDonald's. That is creative. That is something that is super focused about the products, super performance-driven, traffic-driven. It's supposed to drive you directly to the McDonald's to eat that thing that you've just seen. But it was very creative, and it was awarded because it was brave, because we were like, I trust my products so much that I'm going to erase any logo, and I'm pretty sure everyone is going to recognize them. So I think McDonald's is one of the examples that you were saying that has the kind of money to do both, like performance, very product-led, and then a little bit more brand-led and a little bit more purpose-led. But I think the speech around having to choose between the two all the time, the speech that we have a little bit developed is very polarizing between business-led, performance-led, that is supposed to be boring and shit, and the other way around that is supposed to be super creative. I'm sorry, but like any constraint can lead to creativity. So I think every single media, Geeko has done the most creative 6-second bumper ads at that time when no one wanted to do that. So you can find creativity everywhere.
Emotion comes up a lot in these studies. System 1 are all over it, especially a happy emotion. How hard is it to execute happy emotion on ads? Is that like the hardest thing you guys have to tackle?
We had a... sorry, want to go first?
Well, I was just going to say that the bar is really low for this, right? The bar is really low.
What do you mean, like for comedy or for like happiness?
For getting an emotional response. So, for instance, I've been working a lot with System 1 in the database. We took a 30-second clip of a cow eating grass. Right? All that happens is a cow eats grass for 30 seconds. We put it through their database of 120,000 ads. It beat 50% of the ads.
Oh my God.
So like
yes,
a
it's
pretty
important,
cow?
but the bar is really low. I mean, there's so much upside for us here if we lean into it, and talented agencies. The bar.
Okay, if that's the case, then why is that hard to sell to clients then? Why are they not doing it more?
You mean like happy ads?
Yeah, happy
yeah.
ads. Like
because I think
funny ads. What about funny ads?
Because for me, emotions. First off, I mean, it takes us to the conversation around: does emotional storytelling work? I think emotional storytelling is very important. I think sometimes you need to make a consumer cry to get a point across, and sometimes you need to make them smile, like the cow example. I think they're both right. You have to do both because you're trying to tell a story. But I think humor is difficult. I also feel that I think in our industry we've kind of moved away a little bit from humor because nobody wants just to have a real laugh because everyone is worried about their shadow, because we're just worried that someone's going to give an opinion and everyone's going to get upset. I think that's why it's impacted humor to an extent. I think you need to be respectful, but it's very difficult these days to do humorous advertising because of that. That's the honest truth.
Yeah, it is very difficult, specifically humor, because it is so cultural. I mean, everyone has like a different type of humor, and it's super difficult to trigger any kind of emotion. It's very difficult, and I think it is part of everyone in this industry's job to actually make sure that brands and marketers really make the difference between an ad or something that is purely informative. Because a lot of the brief that we receive is like, I need to say that. I need to say that in a very informative way. And our job, and this is what we paid for, is to transform that into an emotional trigger, into an emotional response to the consumer. Otherwise, it's just like, take the brief, print it, put the information, put the number, and that's it. Our role is to transform something that is informative into something that is triggering emotion, because it is the one most powerful thing that is going to make sure consumers listen to what you're saying to them. It is any kind of emotion, humor, happy, sad, whatever. Emotion is going to tap into a very specific place in your brain, and you're going to be heard, and it's going to have more impact.
And it changes around the world, doesn't it? Because fortunately I live in North America, live in Canada, so I get a lot of US content. Shit ads, they don't do humour, and they can't do humour. They're not funny, nor are Canadians, actually, for that matter. But then I travel to the UK. I love TV in the UK. I watch Dave. I like the ads. Even the idents are funny. Australia, they make fun of themselves in a lot of ads. Why is it different around the world, Adam? Why do we get these polarising sort of strategies and tactics in advertising?
I think in Britain we take the view that if we don't laugh, we're going to cry, because Britain's just such a sad, sorry, representation of itself. I think I mean, it is deeply cultural, right? It's deeply cultural. But I think the big thing that's going on here is obviously the conversation about purpose, right? Companies have become much more serious recently, and there's a sense that actually purpose and humour don't coexist. And actually, I would say if you look at challenges, you look at the most interesting challenges, from Liquid Death to Who Gives a Crap to Brewdog, they combine humour and very serious purpose at the same time very well. And there's a fascinating study. It's a great book by Professor Richard Wiseman called Quirkology, in which he looks at interesting experiments. And one of them is a question about, do religious fundamentalists have less of a sense of humour than the rest of us? Right? Really great question. And they research.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. They spend a lot of money in research, and turns out that's true. But I think one of the reasons why, Who Gives a Crap and, that these very companies with very serious purpose that are funny work so well is they shouldn't really belong together, those two things in our minds. But because they're doing it and pulling it off, it has that extra impact. So I think it's the rubbing together of those two things that makes them so powerful.
Did we go too far down the rabbit hole of purpose in this industry? Or do we need to go further? Quick answer from one of you two.
On purpose.
Purpose, yeah.
Do you want to go first? Or shall I?
No, you go.
No, I think, have we gone too far? No. I think the problem with what you're saying is that I think everyone is trying to talk about purpose, and purpose could mean many things. It could be, obviously it means things that you're doing, not just for profit, but for the planet, for society, for humanity, etc. I think the problem that you're facing, and you see some of the examples here everywhere, is authenticity. Because when you talk about certain things, you need to be able to stand for that. You need to be able to prove that you're real, because consumers also smell the bullshit. I think that's the problem that you're having. Everyone is talking about the same topics, but some people do it right because it's part of their DNA, and some people are just faking it, and you shouldn't be doing the other one because you're spoiling it for everyone else. That's the problem.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't know if we went too far, but I think some brands are just like choosing the wrong purpose. Like they're trying to choose something that is not right for them, and sometimes it's also a purpose that it's a little bit too, like maybe too much driven about society or whatever. Sometimes when you're a butter brand, your purpose is to do the best butter in the world, and that is going to drive a lot of things. That is going to drive the way you treat the people that gives you the milk, the how you process your products and everything, and that is purpose-led. That is very, very important. So you don't have to have like the most insane and like unattainable purpose of the world. You just need to know why you exist as a company, not just as a brand, as a company, how your brand is going to help you achieve this as a company. And just because you said something that was so interesting, I think this is crucial for the rest of the conversation that we're going to have about is brand-led work is leading to effectiveness, is that CMOs needs to be in a room with the CFOs and the CEOs. If the CEOs and the CFOs don't understand the link between creativity and effectiveness, between creativity and sales, we'll have this conversation in 5 years, in 10 years, this conversation is never going to end. We need to talk to company leaders, financial people, and show them that actually building a brand is going to help the business.
I totally agree, and you can answer this. Adam's work then, he's putting a price on it. What we do, brand building, is the marketing fluff language. It's right, it's correct, it leads to effectiveness, but it's fluff that doesn't translate into the boardroom. Just something like what Adam produced, would that help you? Would you take that stuff to a CFO and go, look, it's going to cost you 10 million, and we've got a price
I did
on it.
already.
Oh, you did?
I put it into one of my deck maybe a week ago, saying that this is what is going to cost you. Not as much because they're not that rich, but you know what I mean? There was another number, I think it was coming from you also, I don't know, but it was 80% of what we produce as an industry is forgotten. It doesn't have any impact because it's so dull and boring and nobody's just listened to it. So those kind of numbers are important, and I think this is having an impact. Thank you.
And I think some clients, not all the clients are kind of not ignoring that. Some clients actually do understand that metric, and they're realizing that they need to do good work. We have a ton of examples here, a ton of brands that are doing really good work, and I could talk about one of them being one of my clients that has done exceptional great work this year, and that's Coca-Cola. So they do that. They understand that. They're talking about brand building. But I think one of the things you were talking about, kind of purpose. I was at a meeting yesterday with Oxford University, and it was a panel that Oxford, Adobe, Kantar. They were done research, and there was a couple of big clients like Mondelez and Mars and everything that were part of that research, and they were talking about progressive advertising. Progressive advertising in context of have you been inclusive, have you been diverse when it comes to your stories, etc. So all the right measures. Yeah. And they had actually seen an uptake because they had done it authentically during the past couple of years. They had seen an uptake on advertising that had that progressive versus ones that didn't, and the ones that did showed good results. So if you do it right, it works. If you don't do it right, it doesn't. So I think that's also critical.
Can I do a build? If you talk to, you were talking about storytelling and drama. If you study storytelling and drama, what you'll know is in a dramatic scene, there's a dramatic scene here, for it to work, you have to know what the characters want. If you don't know what the characters want, it's just four people standing around, sitting around talking, right? I think the where purpose doesn't work is where there's a disconnect between the stated purpose and what the company actually wants. And actually, with the great things, again, I keep banging on about challenges. What I love about challenges, you know what they want, right? You know what Liquid Death wants. You know what Who Gives a Crap wants. I don't know what Head & Shoulders wants. I've got no idea what it wants. If there is a purpose there, it's completely disconnected from actually between what they want. So I think actually talking much more about what we want as a business alongside purpose would really help sort out the authenticity from the inauthenticity. Yeah.
If the industry moves progressively more short-term, which I'm finding in the US, they are going further down that rabbit hole. Hypothetically speaking, if all brands go short, will brands matter in the future? And you can look at the Prime example as an example. It's not a prime example, it's Prime is the brand. But will brands matter? If we just all go tactical, we all go boring, does it matter if you have a brand? You can answer yes, no if you like.
100% you need to have a brand. I'm a firm believer that
we're all going
matter.
short term.
I think, I think you'll have examples of brands being short. By the way, I think that is also a conversation that brand builders, advertising agencies, media, we need to also have with platforms, right? There's a lot of platforms. Are
you talking?
I'm not against
Google and Facebook and
of course
stuff.
I mean, they're here. Everyone's here. So I think
they're not allowed on this stand. They're definitely not here.
It's just a point of view about the fact that I think it takes a collective effort. We need to have a conversation with those folks as well, because right now a lot of marketeers are listening to short form because platforms are saying it works. That's what's driving it. But I think if there's a collective conversation for the brand longevity and kind of the benefit of the brand long term, I think that will probably get us there. But I definitely think brands matter.
Yeah, but to keep them hooked on those platforms, they're providing the short-term attribution and the dashboards and the things that the CFO loves to prove that it works what they're doing, and they keep putting more money into it. So
I think some are understanding that that's not the only way of doing it. But I think that I generally believe that picture is becoming much more clear versus a couple of years ago.
Okay, it's getting better. Will brands matter in the future?
Absolutely, 100%.
You hope so,
like,
for your job's sake.
I'm a strategic planner. Like, my background is strategic planner, so obviously I do believe in brands. I work with brands. I'm building them. I love building them. I think they matter. I think if they're doing like the right job in finding why they exist, what do they want to do, what do they want, I think, of course, some of them matter. Some of them probably will disappear. I mean, if you're just like interested into what you're selling, and if you're not interested into building your brands, probably the first competitor that is going to have the same exact product, the same exact service, but has a brand, is going to outbid you. Just like one example, we've been working at Marcel with a refurbishing company that is called Back Market. You know, they're like doing refurbishing phones and everything. There is 100 of different brands that were doing that before them, but they were building their brand in such a great way that right now, if I'm asking in France, what is the #1 marketplace to refurbish your phone, everyone is going to tell Back Market. Everyone. That's the power of a brand. Because there is other competitors that are doing exactly the same thing on the same platform, the same service, but everyone is going to go Back Market because they have this vision that is new as old. They have this great work that has been done with us. So, yeah, it will matter. I'm sure of it.
Adam, will we see brands fail before they realise the importance and value of long-term brand building?
I think it's fabulous we're having this conversation in Cannes, because you've only got to walk 200 yards that way to see how much brands matter to everybody who comes down here and stays here, right? You know, it's just, it's everything. I do think there are some categories where the brands will kind of quietly disappear and go away. But I think it all depends on, going back to the beginning of the conversation, companies that believe that brands can create future demand and increase profitability will succeed, and ones that don't will become commoditized.
So we need to put hard numbers around the fluff. That's the key to this.
And dismantle those forces that are driving us down.
And one other thing. There's always a lot of... I'm talking from a creative agency perspective. I think we take a lot of slack as the industry to say that, you know what, it's bad creative is not working and blah, 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 right?
Seen a lot of bad stuff.
You've seen that.
Yeah.
But I think the responsibility is also equally on marketing and marketeers. I think you have good marketers and you have bad marketers. I think that when you have good advertising, I think you only get great content and award-winning content because of great clients, and because clients have decided to kind of adopt and buy and, you know, have that vision. So I think we also need to make sure that we have good marketing and brand builders on that side, which I think is 50-50.
I really want to add on. I think this is so important. Like, the conversation is about, like, agencies, you're bad or you're good or whatever. I think every single great work that is being awarded here or that is working is the output of a great partnership between the agency and the brand. And I think one thing that is super important is that I think the best brand that has the best, you know, like, historic of amazing work has been working with their agency for such a long time. I mean, Levi's has been at BBH for, like, 23 years? I mean, you can't have, like, one example right now of a brand that is staying so long with one agency. And I think this is key to the future, that we have a better, deeper, longer relationship with brands, because without that, without the good partnership, without the good client that understand marketing, understand the power of a brand, we can't do anything on our own. It's impossible. They're the ones that are actually buying the idea, so they need to buy into it.
I think that's one of the big structural issues within the industry. If brands are switching their agencies every 2-3 years, the temptation for the agency is to go for short to prove that it was a good decision. This is the final question, actually. It leads onto the business of creative bodies as part of large holding groups. It's very obvious when you look at their figures. They make more money from media and data and technology, that the creative elements are flat, the creative side of the business. So are creative houses, let's say, and businesses, are they good businesses today?
The creative side of the holding groups?
Yeah. They used to be fantastic.
I think, of course, it used to be because things were integrated.
Yeah.
So it was just one number. You looked at one number. I think, obviously, models have changed. Are they the most profitable within holding groups? No, they're not. Are they the most important within holding groups? In my opinion, yes, they are, because I think it's about the idea that really brings everything together. And I think holding groups understand that. They realize that, you know, the value of an idea, the value of creativity is still very much inherent to, linked to the, you know, overall performance of that holding group. So I think that's the reality. So we can't change it overnight, but it's very, very important in that
You're not
setup.
the growth engine anymore, but you argue you're still vital.
We're the inspiration engine.
Yeah.
And then you have to have inspiration and other enablers to be able to grow. So I think it's just one part of a very critical puzzle.
Okay, last 2 points on this.
Well, I completely agree. I'm ex-agency. I love great agencies. I think the danger is going to be when an activist shareholder in a big holding group spots that actually there's much more money in media than there is in a creative agency.
They've already spotted that, Adam.
When they start to break up, then that's going to be a really existential moment for us, unless we can tackle some of these issues. Like, if we can demonstrate that procurement is costing a client more money than it's saving them, for instance, because it's driving us to do duller work, we can have a different kind of conversation, but that needs to happen really quickly. Really quickly.
Do you know, I've got a mate who's at a smaller creative agency up north in England, and he makes really good money taking big clients from the big agencies because they're more creative, they put more work in it, and they give the clients a much better treatment. And that's how he actually makes his money. You get the final word on this. Are creative businesses good businesses?
They are good businesses because we're still profitable. Are we the most profitable of the holding? Obviously not. Like, it's the same at Publicis, but I completely agree with everyone on this panel. I think also one thing that is super important in the future is that at some point we kind of like been devaluing creativity. Like, the conversation was like, it's not effective, it's all about the data, it's all about the media. I mean, if we not even believe in ourselves anymore, that's just what's the point. So creative agencies really need to show how much value there is in human talent, in the ideas. And I completely agree with you. If we're not like the growth machine, we are the inspirational machine, the driving the change machine, the thing that is going to actually attract talent. I think this is very, very important. Also, like there is so many talent that really want to make a change and have ideas. And I think good creative agencies are attracting those kind of talents, which are crucial in our industry. And I agree with you. I think procurement is an important thing to discuss because they have been participating in like devaluing the time that you put into the work. It's another subject, but it's very, very important. And I think we need to fight for that. We need to fight for our business model. We need to fight for what the value that we put in people and in ideas.
That's the final word.
No, I was just saying we love procurement. If anyone's out there from procurement, we love procurement.
Yeah, he doesn't mean that.
We work with them.
We love you.
I think you can all agree there were some really fascinating insights into the creative industry and what are the current challenges. There's structural challenges, there's business challenges, and there's a mindset challenge. And these three people are absolute experts, and they're really good sport, have to sit here to have to deal with me. So please show your appreciation and give them a massive round of applause. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.